Hello, everybody, and welcome to TMS number 21. I believe it is number 21. And we are welcoming on the show today Heidi Day, who is a very hardworking and passionate member of the Yang Gang. She was a Yang 2020 staffer in Iowa. Before that, she was just a regular Yang Gang supporter, just like the rest of us. And now, post-campaign, she is continuing on and fighting for all of the policies and the idea of putting humanity first that we believe in. Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. And I just want to welcome everyone to the Matt and Heidi show. That's a big announcement.
Breaking.
I'm just going to take over while I'm here, just for fun.
That's all right. And I want to talk with you about a number of things today. One of them, of course, is this idea of the DarkHorse duo, which was floated not really floated, but discussed by last week on the Joe Rogan podcast by Bret Weinstein. And we'll get into what they discussed in a sec. And then also I want to talk about the strategy for congressional candidates, just going into the future, both now in 2020, and then also discussing the races in 2022. And then if anything else comes up, that will be cool. And hopefully we'll have some audience participation at some point. So Heidi, just to start off with, what is the DarkHorse duo at its core? Like, if without even naming like a candidate's name or anything like that, what is the DarkHorse duo?
Okay, so first I want to give some background on how I have any involvement in this whatsoever. I watched the Joe Rogan podcast episode with Bret Weinstein on it. And so I went on Twitter and Bret had tweeted about it. And I replied and said, this is something like, this is interesting, but how does it work with ballot access? That was all I said, right? How can you make it work with ballot access? And then someone replied to me and said, Bret, this is who you need to talk to, right? And so then the next thing I know, Bret Weinstein has DM'd me on Twitter. Basically, the episode of Joe Rogan explains it better than I do, but it's along the concept of if you can have a third party run and not be a spoiler, would you vote for that third party? And we have all these arguments, against third parties, and they're good. They're absolutely valid. I totally respect those arguments. I make those arguments, right? But the idea is to stop making that argument. Like, how do we make it not a spoiler? And so his idea is we got a center-left candidate and a center-right candidate that kind of embody three ideals. And I'm going to tell you what they are here in just a second. They must be patriotic, they must be highly capable, and they must be courageous, right? So there's not like two candidates that have to be this ticket. It's just center left, center right, and they must embody these ideals. In Bret's mind, those candidates were, say, Andrew Yang as the center left and Admiral McRaven as the center right. Bret Weinstein is not Yang Gang. I'm sorry to tell everyone that. He's never been like a Yang supporter like us. It's purely from the perspective of this is the idea, and we need candidates. And in his opinion, these are the best candidates. Like, he did a lot of research. And I've talked to him, and he's told me, he's told a bunch of us like about his method for determining like who these candidates are. And it doesn't even have to be those candidates, right? It's just in his mind, these are the people that embody those those requirements, right? And I mean, they're really good. Like, if you try and name someone that would be, I don't know. I might be biased because I'm Yang and I love Andrew Yang, but it's actually it's not even about Andrew, right? It's literally about this concept of a dark horse duo. So these two would agree to essentially, you're voting for the whole ticket, right? You know who the vice president and the presidential candidate are. Whereas, like right now, when it comes to the DNC, like through the primaries, we don't really even know. Like Joe Biden's vice president is literally likely who will be our president, right? And that's vetted by the DNC, right? So essentially, you would have these two candidates. They would run on a ticket together, and they would agree, if they won, that they would co-govern. And then in 4 years, when it's time for a re-election, they could swap, right? And then the president is the vice president. Ideally, you're giving the Republicans something they want, and you're giving the Democrats something they want, and it's kind of a uniting thing, because so much of the country is like, we're in shambles, to be quite honest, right? Like we've got 40 million people unemployed. We've got a global pandemic. We have protests in the streets that are they're pushing a month. The protests are pushing a month, right? We've got one edge of a cliff or another, right? Donald Trump might get reelected. That's a scary cliff. Joe Biden, and Joe Biden winning obviously is better than Trump, but who actually wants, Joe Biden has had a long career. He's been a great public servant, and I don't even think he wants to be president, right? I feel bad. I'm being honest. Like, I feel like he's just. Anyway, that's my opinion. That's outside of the scope of this. So it's ideally to be a unity ticket, and they would make all decisions together, right? The only decisions that would fall to the POTUS only would be in an emergency, right? Like the decisions that are only within like the president's wheelhouse, like if there's some sort of military action or whatnot. So that's the only time decisions would not be like, and even still, it's expected that the presidential candidate would, in making his decision, consider his vice president. And then in 4 years they switch. Anyway, but the idea is that with a third party, like nobody wants to, and this has been the argument since forever. Nobody wants to be a spoiler. Like a lot of people say Jill Stein was a spoiler for Hillary Clinton. What if you could eliminate being a spoiler? What if this ticket had a kill switch, right? If people were free to consider another option and not be scared into thinking it's going to get Donald Trump reelected, would they support it? Right now, and Kyle Klinsky actually just tweeted this poll out where it showed like 8% of Americans are considering a third party. And that's knowing the third party would be a spoiler, right?
You're stealing my pre-show notes.
Oh shit! I'm sorry. That's huge. That is huge, right? Like 8%, and they know they're going to be a spoiler. Imagine if people were free to like consider this other option, and let's say at a set period before the election, if this ticket is not running away with it, they drop. Right? Mm-hmm. They're not a spoiler. Like no one will take the risk because they don't want to get Donald Trump reelected. But nobody also really wants or thinks that Biden is capable to do the job, right? So that's the whole plan. It doesn't have to be Andrew Yang, right? It doesn't have to be Admiral McRaven. It's literally just this idea that we can break the two-party duopoly. And 2020 is when you do it. When times are good, nobody's like, times are good, right? it's times like these in history, and everybody's like, no, it's not the time. No, it's absolutely the time, right? Like, this is when, just to give an example, and I learned this from Jonathan Herzog, post-World War I Germany, the high unemployment was directly correlated to the rise in white nationalism. I don't see anyone taking the drastic steps to course correct us from that. Like, if you remember, Roosevelt basically told rich people, this is a bad situation. If you don't give a little, the people are going to take it all, right? And he passed the New Deal. I don't see a New Deal coming out of this. I don't, like, it's an emergency situation. And so this calls for emergency measures. So that's what the DarkHorse Duo is about. It's not my idea. It's Bret Weinstein's idea. It stands without Andrew Yang. It stands without Admiral McRaven. It's like, and kind of the idea is that you propose this to people and say, hey, won't be a spoiler. Would you vote for it? If the answer is no, why wouldn't you though, right? If the answer is no, then they're out.
The idea is just not going to go anywhere.
No.
Like, the idea, I think, here is to generate a huge groundswell of support, not just be like, oh, it was like throw out some wild cards, see if we can get. This is
Andrew Yang unsuspending and jumping back in. Right?
Yeah,
that would be a bad idea.
And just talking about what you were referring to with how we have just the record high unemployment numbers and the protests and things are. I think it was I saw polls like 70% of Americans said that this was the lowest point in American history during their lifetimes. That's like an insane number to think about, like, of what's happened over the last 80 years. And what I think is important here, and what Bret was saying is, are any of these problems can you reasonably expect them to be solved in the next 4 years by either Trump or Biden? And I think about that and I think, no, I think Biden hasn't even come out for emergency cash relief yet, when that seems like the most obvious thing you could do to help everyday people right now. And I was discussing this with a few of my Biden supporting friends the other day. And I was like, just what is one policy that we could actually reasonably expect Biden would get passed in year one that is actually like a legit going to change the lives materially for people? And perhaps you or someone in the chat could name more, but they only could name one, and that was decriminalize marijuana. And I'm like, okay, that's one, but even then, it's like
that's not even like decriminalize. Okay,
like even a majority of Republicans say it should be legalized. So technically, Biden's still behind, but I'll give that one to him. But I think that Biden or Trump aside, the fact of the matter here is neither of them are in a position where they're going to bring the comprehensive changes that we need. And we really can't wait 4 years. You said it yourself, how the rise of white nationalism was correlated to record high unemployment. And we already we're at a boiling point in terms of race relations already. And we're just 3 or 4 months into this thing. And we're seeing record high case numbers now in Florida, Arizona. Like, this isn't going away. This is only going to get worse. And I think that it definitely seems like a good idea to explore an alternative option.
Yeah. Well, like Andrew, when he was running, like what he said about like climate change, here's the facts. We're already too late. We are 10 years too late. We need to move people to higher ground. We have to face facts. We are too late. We have to have every option on the table to course correct, right? We have history as a playbook, right? And we are not making the moves to course correct. Donald Trump obviously isn't. Donald Trump is just stoking like the flames of his white nationalism, basically. Right?
Oh yeah, it's insane.
And Biden's just like, we're just going to return to Obama-Biden year. Like, what? Like, as Yang Gang know, there's a reason that Trump, like 4 years of Biden isn't going to solve why we got Trump, right?
Yeah. And as Heidi says here, Biden already told his elite donors nothing will fundamentally change.
They'll feel better that Trump's not in office. That's what will change. Like, I've seen so many like elite people that it's literally like it's an offense to them that Trump is president. I'm sorry, I don't like it any more than you do, but it's just getting Biden and not having Trump in office is not going to prevent what might be worse than Trump, right?
And it's definitely like there's a very legitimate case to want to not have Trump in office any longer. I mean, he literally is repeating the words Kung flu over and over again, which is only going to do one thing, and that is increase racism towards Asian Americans. And he just keeps doing it. We're like, things are, I forgot my point again.
He's not helping is your point. He's, like I said, that the rise in white nationalism post World War I Germany. That's this.
Okay. Thanks for helping me out. He's doing things terribly. So there's a legitimate case to be like, okay, vote for Biden. Because even though I know that he's not going to bring any of the fundamental changes that we really need right now, I do at least know that he's not going to stoke racial tensions. He's not going to be recklessly saying drink bleach from the podium or disinfectant, whatever it is. It'll be a soul of the nation presidency. It'll be a return to normalcy. Yeah. And that's a very legitimate case to be like, okay, Biden's our guy. But what that doesn't mean is that if there was another option where you had that same soul of the nation morals of the presidency at its core combined with the policies that now more than ever Americans agree we need. Again, 70% worst, lowest moment in history. This is the time, and it's like I said earlier. I think it seems like maybe in some circles or some discussion, it seems like this idea should be completely shut down, and that just doesn't make sense to me because you just have to consider the times we're in and the reality of the fact that no one's going to fix it, and like. We can, this is a long shot, but 2020 has been a very crazy year. And
crazier things have happened.
If there was ever a time for long shots, this would be it. And just piggybacking off of what you said, it's not about Yang at all.
No,
it's not about McRaven at all. It's about Trump, Biden, and the current reality that we are facing as a country. Hi, dog.
My dog is barking. Hi,
What's her name?
You met my dog, Matt. Jeez.
Oh. I still don't know if I ever met your dog.
Yes, you did. We were somewhere in Iowa, and he was in his kennel in the back of my Jeep.
Okay. Oh, wait.
Yes, he traveled with me a lot.
Okay.
You met him, Matt. God, I can't believe you don't remember my dog. Anyway, it's the Matt and Heidi show, guys.
Yep. Yeah. But anyways, that's the point. And Yang's a smart guy. If he thinks that by him running third party is going to destroy his credibility or lead to him having no chance in the future of being able to move his platform forward, he's not going to go for it. No. And the people who thought of this idea who aren't Yang Gang, it seems to me like they're committed to it with or without Yang. So if Yang said no, they're going to look for someone else. Or if it turns out ultimately there's not enough support,
it goes nowhere, and that's the end. I mean, think about it. Like if the idea, like I said, it's not Andrew unsuspending or whatever, right? It's the idea is to build the groundswell and show that there's this overwhelming support, right? So let's say that because a lot of the Yang Gang is kind of understandably they're kind of freaking out. I get it. I understandably absolutely get it. But if you think about it, let's say they do get the groundswell of support for this, and then we pressured Andrew to come out against it. This is like, we fucked ourselves, didn't we? Right?
Yeah.
Like, so trust Andrew, and also trust like for you and I, Matt. We know Andrew. He's more than our candidate, right? He's our friend. I would not support anything. Like, I love that man. I would not support anything that would hurt him, right? That would hurt his career, that would hurt like his future prospects. if he's not on board, I mean, like, that's his decision. He just
completely.
says no. That's the end of it. So if you think about it, like, if you yell at him and push him to not support it before it's even taken off, let's say it does take off. I'm not saying it will, but let's say it does take off. He's already said no. And then we're fucked.
Because this thing, I mean, Bret Weinstein, he originally talked about it on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is the #1 podcast in the world, millions of listeners. And if they continue pushing this idea and really trying to turn it into a serious thing, it's going to become bigger than Yang Gang. We just happen to be, some of us happen to be involved. I think like not everybody's going to be on board. There might be someone here who really loves Trump or really loves Biden. But one thing I want to talk about in regards to what Nell said is he says he's voting Biden. I can't help Trump by voting third party. But you talked about this.
Yeah, I just talked about it.
It's okay because he might have just.
I love you, Nell.
He might have just jumped in.
Okay.
Yeah. We love you, Nell, and I appreciate the donation. Could you just expand a little bit more on what the kill switch exactly is to prevent it from becoming a spoiler? Like, is it something that if the polling like clearly showed that it would put Trump in more of a chance to win, it would just get instantly killed?
They would agree to at a predetermined date before voting started. And it just depends because obviously there's probably going to be mail-in voting. So before voting starts, if this is not a clear winner, then they agree to end it, right? That's how it's very simple. That's literally how you get around not being a spoiler, is by not being in the race. I mean, that's like any other race, right? To not be a spoiler, you end your race. So, but when you explain that to people, that if, say, it has had this kill switch, and people are more free to consider it, right? They're like polling like, hey, there's this third party. It's, the idea of it is if it doesn't work out, it's, they drop out and they won't be a spoiler. Would you support, this party? So if literally you have like 70% of voters like, holy shit, I have another option and I don't also have to worry that I'm going to throw the election, and they'll stay in. But if that's not the case, they drop out. So like his whole idea is to bring in this, this duo, not hand the election to Trump. And if it's not, if it turns out everyone does want Biden, or if it turns out Trump is like, then they're out. It's just that simple.
Yeah. So I feel like we went over it kind of pretty well. Again, this isn't something that you're running, not something that I'm running.
It's not my thing.
We watched the Rogan podcast because we watched Rogan. And obviously, like, if I see Rogan being like, yeah, that's a great idea, Andrew Yang's amazing, I'm going to be like, this is so cool. It doesn't mean I'm like, suddenly I turn into someone insane where I'm like, yeah, Yang, go kill your political career. Even though you said you would never run independent, just go kill your credibility and destroy everything you've been building. Like,
I am the last person that would expect Andrew to do. Like I said, he's a friend. Like, I love the man. I would never ask him to do something. I would never expect him to do something. But as someone who also knows Andrew, I know that he is. I'm not saying he would do it, but I know that he's country over party, period. So
I do think, like, ultimately, I mean, you talk about the 8% poll. Mark Cuban, he said on Yang Speaks that when he did his polling, he was at 25%, which still isn't high enough, but that's an insane number for it'd be the highest ever.
What percentage did Trump win with? 22%? 25%? Because 40%.
22% of the country, but
of voters.
Trump won 22% of like the population, or like registered voters.
Registered voters, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but a lot of registered
Cubans
voters don't vote.
25. A Cuban, I believe it was his family didn't want him to do it more than anything.
Yeah, that's what he said. I think. Okay. I think what I mean by like Cuban 25, like 25 out of 100%. That's what I meant. Like, well, obviously, but I mean like strictly polling percentage.
Yes.
Like relating to votes.
40% of America, and it might even, I think it's more than that. It's almost half of Americans are registered independents, right? I'm an independent. Because neither party represents, then this is registered people that vote, right? Imagine if you get 40% of people that vote, right? To vote for your ticket, then you win. But it just shows that the Republicans and the Democrats don't really represent anyone anymore, and everybody wants a different option instead of what is literally forced down our throats.
Yeah, I mean, in general, the Republican and Democratic parties, I think they're two sides to the same coin. I think they both suck. People can argue which party sucks less, which probably ultimately decides maybe which one you have a bias towards. But
well, they sort of combined, like in the night.
They basically are this. They're basically the same thing. Yeah, it's the duopoly, right? But one point I wanted to make real quick is like, and just saying how, we saw this on Rogan, we're like got really excited. It's Yang that grabbed our attention, but we didn't stay on the idea because of Yang. We then got more. Once Yang pulled us in and we looked more into the actual plan and how it would work, it seems like there's no harm in moving forward.
Yeah, and exploring the idea and seeing if it's something, like, if it's not feasible, it's not feasible. But to me, I think it's a very Yang gang kind of thing to.
It's scrappy.
Yes, and we are, and that's Andrew. Okay, Andrew is Yang gang. I'm just gonna let y'all know when it comes to traditional campaign versus Yang gang. Andrew's Yang gang. Okay. Yeah, exactly, Justin. That's exactly it. But anyway, so I'm not speaking for Andrew. I'm not saying he would ever do it, but I'm not saying that. Like I said, he's. Did I lose you, Matt?
No, you're good. I made you full screen.
Were you trying to show my cat setup back here?
I guess I am. No, you're very nice blue microphone.
Oh, thank you. It's gonna fall down at some point. That's like a feature, like a, what do they call those in video games? An Easter egg when my mic falls down. When you see me like trying to hold my mic up, if you notice that, it's
something that people, if you guys want to check out Heidi's channel, links in the description. She does a podcast every week with James Ellers?
It's when we feel like there's not a schedule.
We'll say every week. But you might also be launching a new thing. I don't know.
Yeah, the Matt and Heidi show. Yeah.
I was gonna say the Heidi and Heidi show.
Yes.
What
is Heidi? Is she still in the chat?
Yeah, I think she's here. But what was it like? It was something Heidi's.
Between two Heidis.
Oh yeah, between two Heidis. I'm a fan.
I mean, it's something we've been joking around about. There's nothing like for sure, unless she says like here live on your show that she wants to do it. Heidi, I can't see the chat, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and also, I totally understand the Yang gang's position. I'm not like trying. Yes.
Let's go.
We're good. We're on. Anyway, I understand the Yang gang's position. I'm not trying to like discredit anyone. Like I am very much, I don't want to do anything that hurts Andrew, but also understand this isn't even like really about Andrew or the Yang gang, right?
Yeah.
Like if it takes off, it's gonna be outside of the Yang gang.
If it stays within the Yang gang, this idea ain't going anywhere. I think if the Yang gang tent was big enough, we wouldn't be in this predicament because Yang would already be the nominee. So
exactly.
But yeah, that's like that's why I wanted to go through it with you, because I think everyone in the Yang gang has the best interests at Yang in heart, and we all feel very passionate about those interests in Yang. So if we see others doing something that we feel is going to potentially be harmful to that, people are going to speak out very passionately.
Absolutely.
But I always feel like it's important to recognize that not only do the people who dislike the idea that feel that way, but also the people who are fans of the idea feel that way. And I just felt that there was some misconception slash like just people hadn't fully explored the idea, perhaps, which is fine. But I feel like I'd rather, if we're going to discuss and debate the idea and whether it's a good idea, I'd rather it be on things that are actually applicable to what we're talking about, rather than, because I like saying that you're worried about Trump, but the plan has something to deal with Trump. I'm trying to think, like, off the top of my head, if there are any other like negative impacts of this, reasons not to do it, cons. And I guess one that I could think of is if it did become something that the Yang Gang put a lot of energy into and it didn't end up working out, is that potentially pulling our energy away from something like pushing congressional candidates that perhaps has a lot more likely of a shot to succeed.
No, that's absolutely valid. We do have to keep our eye on the prize. Like right now, I think that if I'm not mistaken, we're done with the primaries. I think like Breuer and Herzog's primaries were yesterday, and they were the last ones. And so it's not till like the general, like with Blair and David Kim in November, that that we really have anything to do. The Yang Gang is also, I mean, the Yang Gang it's made up of a lot of people, a lot of really smart people, but I do think it is important to not let those things like get away from us. Like, so I've been working with this, not working, I'm not saying I don't have anything to do with it. I've been discussing this idea, but also still supporting Jonathan and Mike, and still doing what I have to do. So no, it's important to remind people not to get distracted, because come November we've got some really important races. So no, that's a valid concern. I agree.
Yeah, it does seem to me like you can do two things at once. This has nothing to do with DarkHorse duo at all, but I do think it's important that the Yang Gang do, even though the primaries for the core group of Yang Gang candidates, because there still is humanity forward candidates like Russ Cirincione on his primary, I believe, is on the 7th.
Okay, I didn't realize we still have.
He's running against anti-cash relief Democrat, like a guy's literally the head of a chair of one of the committees, powerful guy. He's actively working to keep this thing from moving forward.
Oh wow.
Personally, Cirincione, a little to the left from my politics, like I guess more of a Bernie leaning gangster. Well, not gangster, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, he's endorsed by Humanity Forward, but wasn't necessarily like Yang Gang.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like he's an ally, but not necessarily in like.
Yeah.
But that's something that I think is important, that we not be seen as this cult where it's only if you're loyal to the cause.
No, absolutely.
So I would love to see a Cirincione, a pro UBI guy beat anti UBI guy, and I think in the short term that's something that we could throw some of our grassroots energy.
Well, and we focus on multiple races. What's one more? If it came to that, I'm not saying it will. Like the probability that this happens,
what I want to say real quick about Blair and David again. I think that we really got to start doing everything that we can for them, like now. Because just the earlier is better. And this just goes off something that I have seen a bit. We saw it in Andrew's campaign, and we've seen it a bit in some of these congressional campaigns. Is you can you can get in your campaign to a really good spot. You can have good fundraising. You can be getting a lot of media. You can have a lot of grassroots energy, a lot of volunteers. Yeah. But if you reach that point too late, late in the campaign, 2 weeks before voting day, it's already too late.
I'm definitely not saying wait till 2 weeks before voting day.
You could have said that happened a bit with Mike Breuer. I mean, so I just want to emphasize, like, we gotta be thinking like long term into the
Yes.
future. Like, now is the time to think. I think about 2022
I agree.
and what type of which districts that we think that are winnable. Because if you look, I was reading an article last night on Jamal Bowman's win in New York 14 against the foreign affairs chair, very powerful Democrat incumbent, like 28 years, got tossed out last night handily. Apparently, like, that's a district that Justice Democrats like specifically targeted, similar to AOC. Powerful Democrat, safe blue district. You just got to beat them in a primary, and you're in. And it's easier to win a primary than a general, like if you were running against a red candidate, because there's lower turnout for primaries. So it's but I think like what they did is they went in and they recruited Bowman. He was just like a principal teacher, just like an average guy. Like, we as the Yang Gang, we gotta like
find those people.
Yes, like those people that are like, and I think we have a really great lineup of candidates right now. We got to find those people that are for 2022. We got to find them early, and then we got to put everything that we have behind them.
Absolutely.
Like, more so than we have done now, because while we've won some races, I don't like losing. So
we got a late start. That we had Yang Yang candidates running in the same election year as Andrew Yang. We did pretty good, right? Like 2020 was also when Andrew ran. 2022, we have a head start now. I would say that the biggest thing that we can do, we already know we have one candidate, Erica. Go set up your Act Blue monthly donation. If it's $2 a month, if it's $5 a month, it helps. Like, help her build that war chest. Like, this was something we tried to do very quickly, like for Andrew and also for our other 2020 candidates, because it was just all so late in the game. 2022, just start now. Like, we're not going to be phone banking now, obviously. People will hate your candidate if you're phone banking 2 years out. But money. Help them build that war chest. And like you said, recruit people. Let's find these districts. Like if you look at, I'm not trying to be mean, but I feel like Erica lives in a great district because I think she can really beat this guy.
Yeah,
right?
She's essentially facing a corporate Dem in a safe blue district. And I'm glad that she's starting out so early. And I think Erica's a superstar. She's gonna be a superstar. And like you said, if you just put in $2 a month, because she's starting so early, by the time we reach actual campaign season, you've effectively already given her, like a $30, $40, $50 donation, something like that. And that's big because she has it at the beginning of the cycle, not at the very end of the cycle, when you've lost so much time and opportunity that you could have had to connect with voters. I'm all on board with the Erica for Congress. We need like a good slogan, like David Kim has "Yes We Kim." I don't know if Blair has one yet. Mike, it was the Breuer Brigade.
Yeah, I don't know. Erica doesn't have one yet. We definitely need to. Like, so I feel like
brainstorm mission.
She could just show up and win, because she's just that person that's just like, she could go to the polls and just talk to everyone and then win. But also, let's build a gang for her, a Yang gang. And then just money is the huge one. Like, Yang 2020, like the third quarter fund, that big haul that we got was amazing, but it was also like Pete Buttigieg had already like spent a whole bunch of money building his ground game. Bernie had been there for 5 years building his ground game. Like, we were so far behind the curve at that point. And we know that now for 2022. We can start, like, just set up as they announce, just donating and taking a page from like the burners. That's literally what they do. Like, when Bernie came out and Bernie and AOC came out and endorsed Charles Booker in the Kentucky race, like the machine of small donors just went to work, right? And they raised him some money. We don't have the giant political movement that Bernie did, so we have to work harder. right? You got to start earlier and work harder.
Yep, absolutely. And like if another thing by starting earlier and working harder is maybe that progressive, that Bernie leaning candidate who was thinking about running, maybe would be de-incentivized to run because they're like, oh crap, this person's already started a year ago. She's already raised $50,000. She already built out her team.
Exactly.
Like, yeah. So like there's a lot of benefits. One comment that did come up in the chat from Emmanuel, he brought up, let me see if I can find it. I can't find it, but basically saying that we're talking now, it seems like a little, I guess, hypocritical, like, we got to prepare now, 2 years, lay everything out, but then we're trying to do
this is the Yang Gang. Yang Gang is small. The
Yeah.
idea, like if you look at the protests that are going on right now, that was overnight.
Yeah. Well, I was
that
like,
happened overnight.
I was just gonna say
well.
it's like it's comparing like two completely different situations.
Yeah. When I talk about 2 years, like I recognize that because if it was just up to the Yang Gang to make this DarkHorse duo, I love the Yang Gang. It's not going to happen. We're not going to make it happen by ourselves, right? We're smaller. We have to work harder and we have to start earlier. That is a totally, like I said, like what's going on with all of the protests. It was like some things take a long time and some things happen in an instant. And 2020 is crazy, right? Crazier things have already happened. So I just like suspend disbelief. If something can be done, just keep an open mind. If it can't be done, what did you lose, right? If it's something that's obviously harmful to Andrew, I don't want a part of it. I don't, I think people know me better than that. I think people know you better than that. Anyone else that's involved. We know Andrew. We love Andrew. We're not trying to hurt Andrew. It's not even about Andrew.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it feels like the worst case scenario would be very intelligent people with big platforms keep talking about this idea. Yes. And suddenly a bunch of people who either were politically disengaged or weren't fans of Trump or Biden, or maybe were very soft supporters of Trump or Biden, suddenly look up to Andrew Yang as their savior who's going to rescue them from the depths of hell. And suddenly when 2024 rolls around and Andrew runs again, they'll already know about him. They'll already have a strong inclination to support him. That to me seems like the worst possible thing that could come out of this, because Andrew's not responsible for the behavior of people who talk about him, right? Like, so if a bunch of people in big circles, whether it's Joe Rogan or anywhere else, have this idea, oh, Yang should run, it's not like the corporate Democrats suddenly go up to Yang, how dare you allow Joe Rogan to say that? It's like Yang would be like, I don't like I don't.
I don't even know how to get a hold of the guy. But I think, like, honestly, and where Andrew is right now is he's, like we all want him with weird sentiment. We all want him to cozy up to the DNC. But the thing is, Matt, as you saw when he was on my interview, he said, "Look, people are calling me and asking me what I need to." What they need to do. They're calling Andrew and asking him what they need to do to not have Andrew endorse their opponent. This is Andrew still outside the system. Do you think the DNC wants to get him under wraps? Yes, they do. But so, I mean, think about it. The guy has a lot of, he's got that political capital. They're nervous about him. He will tell you his voters are not voting for Biden.
Yeah.
Right? He'll be the first to be like, they're not really supporting Biden, according to So I think that, obviously I understand being worried. I just think that keep an open mind. If it can't be done, it can't be done. Let's not count Andrew out. And then, watch another candidate potentially take this opportunity. And if someone else does, I like the idea whether or not Andrew is on board. If it can happen, I like the idea, right? Whether or not it's Andrew Yang. I love Admiral McRaven. I'm a Navy veteran, right? He's a hero to us, right? But whether or not, like, personally, I would be like, hey, bring Jim Mattis in, you know, like I love Mattis.
Well, that's
it could be multiple people.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting conversation to have. Is like, if it wasn't Yang, if it wasn't McRaven, like, who would it be? I think Mattis would be amazing. I don't know if he would do it. I mean, he did sign on board with the Trump administration. And
oh wait, but have you seen how that went?
Well, I know. I know. Yeah. But
Trump,
this time he wouldn't be have Trump telling him what to do. It'd be him telling himself what to do / whoever listening to whoever his partner, partner in crime in the DarkHorse duo was.
He meets the requirements. Like you literally want someone that's above the fray, that's above the corruption. And as someone who is a veteran, I will say that is Mattis, and that's also McRaven. I mean, you know, like the idea kind of is bring the groundswell for this idea, and we'll fill in. Fill in the candidates.
Like
really.
the candidates, the names are less important than just the idea in and of itself, getting it across that it's not a spoiler, and just seeing if there's actually enough support there for there to be a path to win. Because like people aren't going to put effort into this and waste time. Like these are very serious people.
Yes.
That are seriously concerned about the state of our country. Like they study how fucked things are for a living.
Like Bret Weinstein being the kind of the force behind this. You know, he's an evolutionary biologist. He's not not a politician, obviously, but he's not a stupid person. And if this was my idea, kind of like what I tell you guys, if ever I run for office, don't vote for me. If I come up with a crazy idea, definitely. I mean, you should question anyone and anyone's idea, but it's not like it's not even like it's Joe Rogan. that because Joe Rogan actually has his perfect third party that he wants to run. I think it's like Jocko and The Rock. I wouldn't go with Joe Rogan. Necessarily go with Joe Rogan on that, but it's smarter people than me obviously still question everything.
Yeah. Back to talking about Congress. Since Heidi's here, I wonder, or since the other Heidi Briones is here, like Heidi, what do you think it takes in terms of money? Because that definitely is obviously going to be the most important factor in terms of winning a congressional race. Like, how much do you reasonably need to raise to take out like a corporate establishment funded incumbent?
Are you asking Heidi B?
I am asking Heidi Briones since she's here, and then we can discuss it.
Good.
The tale, or what is it? I don't know why I keep saying the tale of two Heidis. In between.
That's a good one. It's between two Heidis, but I like a tale of two Heidis.
Okay. Between two Heidis. I'm creating the show right now. By the end of this, I will have slowly moved off the screen, and Heidi will slide over. Okay, Heidi says depends how much they have. Maybe I guess like in general, I guess the answer is not going to be the same everywhere. I want to talk about a Kentucky Senate race real quick. You and me, we both supported Breuer.
Yes.
But I supported Breuer for a few reasons. I liked his policies a little bit more than Booker, and I felt that he was the most electable candidate in terms of being able to beat Mitch McConnell. And it's going to be hard for any of those candidates, whether it was McGrath, Booker, or Breuer, to beat McConnell. Yeah. So that's something that I put a lot of influence into who I thought was the best choice. But with that said, now that the voting has happened, Breuer unfortunately didn't shock the world. It looks like I'm happy to say that I really hope Booker pulls it out. Now, some people will be like, "Well, you're a hypocrite if you would have supported Booker the whole time," but
he still would have won if you would have just been on the winning team. Is all. It wouldn't change anything.
The thing that there's only 50,000 votes or so have come in last I checked. But there's actually
they're expecting like 400,000 of them.
Yeah, it's actually more. It's like 600,000.
Oh shit! Okay,
like, they actually, I think it was like 128,000 voted in person yesterday, and they haven't even finished counting those. and then there's like 600,000 mail-in ballots.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay, so
like,
we have no idea who won this race.
This race is, we have no clue what's going to happen. And so I'm like, now that, people will call me a hypocrite. Like I said, people call me a hypocrite. I say that's, I guess, fair. I'm not going to like say I was wrong, though, to support the candidate that I like the best. Because I believe
nothing wrong with supporting your candidate. That's not wrong.
Yeah, but like not everyone's going to agree. You can't
like Andrew Yang. Are you wrong for supporting Andrew Yang? He lost.
Yeah. So anyways, but I think it's amazing now that even though my candidate that I liked lost, that there's still now an opportunity for a UBI supporting person in Charles Booker to potentially run against Mitch McConnell in what could be one of the most watched races of the cycle, especially if it were to actually get close. That would put a huge spotlight on UBI. And what I'm really hopeful of, and what I think would be amazing, is since Scott Santon's UBI expert helped draft Mike Breuer's UBI plan, I think it would be incredible if the Booker campaign would be willing to work with Scott, because I know Scott would definitely be down to do something similar and come out with their own UBI plan. I think that'd be amazing. And I think that would get a lot of Yang Gang on board.
Absolutely.
And we can lend some of our energy and resources into helping him win.
Yeah. No, it's no loss that it like I said, the race is still up in the air. We have no idea where it's going. But it would be no loss if a UBI candidate won. Like it's a difficult thing when you have two UBI candidates, right? Like it's an embarrassment of riches, as they say. I personally, I was with you. I felt like I was trying to be a little more realistic about who could actually beat. And that would be mine too. I was trying to be realistic about who could actually take on Mitch McConnell, because next to Trump, he's the second most dangerous politician in the country. But and I've talked to Mike, like his whole staff was my coworkers from Yang 2020. The guy is absolutely a great guy. He's charismatic. He's not a politician. I feel like
I for real, like genuinely started getting like a candidate crush on him.
he's so like, he looks so, he's a lot of like Andrew, and that he's very authentic, and he just looks so like he's like surprised and happy. He's like, you guys really believe this? Like Andrew was always so grateful for people's support, right? And that's like, he would tell me, he's like, Heidi, I knew that every time I saw you, he's like, I knew that however this goes, he's like, things are going to be okay because you're part of the team, right? I'm grateful that you're here. like it's just an authentic non-politician kind of thing. And that's what Breuer, that's what Mike had as well. I interviewed him too. He's just a very kind person that genuinely wants to help. Like Booker's a UBI candidate. He's great. I feel like he's more of he's a politician, right? But it's not a huge loss based on the fact that he's a UBI candidate. Now, do I think that he'll hire Scott Sands to write his UBI plan? I feel like in regards to like Bernie candidates, they tend to have like a boilerplate. Like if you look like infra, their infra is all the same, right? So, and we know that a giant Twitter account associated with Bernie literally called Scott Sands a grifter. So I don't know that they would do that. I think that the way they work is they would, if they ever had a actual policy, it would be something that was written by their platform people, and then they would all adopt it. I would love if Scott Sands wrote it, but I don't necessarily see something like that happen. For me, something I am definitely concerned about is like making the inroads, because technically, I mean, we're both progressives, like the Bernie-crats and the Yang Gang, but as it stands right now, like we're a nuisance, right? We're like a gnat on their ass. Like anytime, like like if there's a Bernie-crat and a Yang Gang running in the same race, they're like, drop out and support
they
me.
consider
Just
us
like they did to Andrew.
a nuisance.
Yeah. And that hurts my heart.
that's what I want to change going forward. Like, and that's why, again, like saying like Erica starting now, that's the right idea. If anyone out there is thinking about running for Congress, hit up like Heidi Briones. Sorry, Heidi, that I'm adding so much extra work to your plate. Hit up Heidi Briones. Hit up Jonathan Herzog. Hit up people who worked on Mike Breuer's team and ask them, how do I get started? What do I need to do? How much do I need to fundraise? What type of see, someone who's actually running for had run could explain what you need to know before going into ballot, the legal side. How do you like all that kind of stuff? Definitely would be willing to help you. And like, just if it's something that you think about, get started now. I know Trumper for Yang. Oops, I don't want to highlight that comment. I won't bring him up. Trumper for Yang is in the chat. He he would be, as far as I know, the first he would be a Yang Gang Republican or a UBI supporting Republican. That if Dennis, if you were to actually run and get endorsed by Humanity Forward, that to me is the real question. That seems very fascinating to me. Would Humanity Forward endorse a Republican candidate if they had UBI on their platform? It seems like, because then it go. Because Andrew, admittedly, he kind of has been playing on Team Democrat ever since he dropped out. And that's definitely like endorsing a Republican. That's not playing Team Democrat. But it's probably a Republican. I assume it's a safe Republican district. So it's saying, hey, we could have a Republican who sucks, or we could have someone who at least shares some of our values, at least UBI. So I hope I'm not making Trumper like, oh God, he's
going off in the chat. I personally think that Humanity Forward would absolutely.
Yeah, I think that'd be so cool. Yeah. That's like not left, not right, forward. So
no, and that's what like separates us, I think, from we've already endorsed candidates that were maybe Bernie-crats or just Democrats or whatever. It's not just Andrew's not out there just like, and he, like he said when I talked to him, he's like, if you were Yang Gang, that's like extra endorsement. But I still like Yang Gang adjacent, whatever. I still, we're in this together. I still want to support him. So I can see him totally endorsing Dennis.
Yep, absolutely. There's a
comment. I phone bank for you, Dennis. I don't know how to talk to Republicans. You just have to tell me what to tell them.
Suddenly, I'm really adding to a bunch of people's workloads that they didn't know they had. Well, Kim, I don't think he should, because he's still running. He's going to go like this is the congressional race as it stands now. Because one thing, like, not everybody on YouTube, I feel like, is as plugged into everything that's going on in like Twitter world all the time, and that's where like I feel like a lot of the congressional candidates that we're pushing, a lot of the activity goes on there. Yeah. David Kim, he placed second in his jungle primary back in March against a Democratic incumbent, which means he will be facing that Democratic incumbent as a Democrat in the general election in November. So and he's Yang Gang, was on board since the beginning. We have a real chance to flip that seat. Well, not flip it, but you guys know what I mean. And so that's one race. Blair Walsingham, she has a primary. Somebody wants me to do my Donald Trump impression. She has a primary August, I think 7th, but she's effectively already won because her only opponent dropped out yesterday. So she's going to go to the general. Now, her district is very Republican. Yes. However, if there was ever a candidate that was going to win a super Republican area, it would be the Yang Gang candidate whose gun policy is the Second Amendment. I support the Second Amendment. Guns aren't the problem. People aren't the problem. People aren't the problem, which means guns aren't the problem. And then she goes through like what the actual problem is. It's like, that's what you need if you're gonna win a red area,
Yeah, it's
like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like
that's why we supported like Mike Breuer in Kentucky. It's like you gotta work with who you gotta work with. But so she's got like I think 139 years of Republicans that she's up against. So we really need to hit the ground hard for her. Get Tulsi to endorse her. Yeah, I can see that.
All right, so I'm gonna spill the beans a little bit. I was messaging with someone from Humanity for Yang last night, and he was thinking like, what should our next goal be? Is like as a movement, like which race should we focus on if there's going to be one?
DarkHorse duo.
And we were talking about David Kim, and we were trying to think of like what a hashtag would be for him, and I thought of one, but it's different. It's something I feel like we haven't done before. It's hashtag Bernie endorse Kim, because Kim's been endorsed by Yang, Marianne Williamson, Humanity Forward, Our Revolution has even endorsed him, and that's like the Bernie. That's
Sunrise Movement LA.
Yeah, Sunrise Movement. Pretty much like all the different progressive groups, including even the Burners. And he's full on Medicare for all, Green New Deal, everything that Bernie.
Socialist. He's literally a socialist. Like he straddles Yang Gang.
Well, he's Yang Gang, but he definitely has both elements fully, I think, and embodied within his campaign. So it's like, if that's a seat we want to win, we know how big Bernie's endorsement would be. And like these are the opportunities where Yang and Bernie candidates, even though we've had our not Yang and Bernie candidates, Yang and Bernie supporters, we've had a disagreement. So, but hey, here's something we both agree on. We both think this guy's great. There's no Charles Booker in this race. It's just 1-on-1 corporate Dem versus a young progressive. Take your pick. Like, do this thing. Hashtag Bernie endorse Kim. So we'll see if that.
I wonder why he hasn't already. Like sometimes I'm confused about like Bernie's methods of, like if he would have looked at like the Kentucky race, he'd been like, oh look, we've got a progressive that's endorsed by Andrew Yang, Marianne Williamson. Why would we cross that? I don't know. So I don't always understand why Bernie does things.
I mean, the real issue in Kentucky is just, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just not a good idea to put two candidates in there who are very ideologically similar.
Yeah.
But I mean, shit happens. This doesn't always work out. And then Nell said, why can't AOC? I mean, like that's the thing is I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know why they haven't.
So maybe that should be something that we push for, so that they know, hey, there's this guy out there that literally embodies your values and your policies. Let's work together and
he can win. So
secure the bag.
Yeah, like literally, that Bernie endorsement brings like his political machine.
What his thing is, fundraising network.
What's that?
His fundraising network. His it's you can't compete with it. It's insane.
No, like by the time Iowa voted, Bernie had spent $90 million. Not just on Iowa, but like by the time the very first race had happened, he'd already spent $90 million. Like he has as much of a political machine behind him as anyone.
Jamie says, working together in this way across the country is how the Tea Party took over so quickly. Yang Gang could definitely do the same. Thanks for all the hard work.
And Yang Gang is in general open to it, but what I've seen is, and I'm just being honest here, is like from the Bernie side, it's very much assimilate. We must become like,
I agree with I agree with you, but I also feel like we have to be the bigger person, bigger group here. We have to be the leaders. We have to be the role models and say, look, Cirencione, he's not Yang Gang, but he supports stuff that we agree with and would be better than what's there. We're going to throw our passion behind him. I think they should. I think if we exemplify that and they don't follow through on their end, it's only going to be a poor reflection of them and a positive reflection of us.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Yeah.
So, Sir X3 asks, sorry, just joined. How exactly is the plan non-spoiler? We talked about it a good bit in the beginning of the podcast, but I'll give like a brief explanation. Basically, if the polls showed that whatever the duo was, whether it's Yang McRaven or some other combination of people, they would just kill it. It would be done instantly. Heidi's texting while streaming. Texting while
I'm
streaming.
reading the comments that you're hiding from me. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm definitely texting while streaming. But yeah, that's basically it. Is it has a kill switch? Like that's if you take away the one thing that everyone is concerned about, like will my vote be a spoiler for Trump? But like if that's what the polling shows, then they drop out. It's literally a pact that's you're not a spoiler.
Yeah.
So I mean, in the whole idea of a spoiler is constantly harped by the two-party system, and they'll always be the ones that are like, "Oh, this is terrible, huh? We should do something else," and they never do anything else because why would power give up power, right? So if you can work within the system, find a loophole or another way, then freaking go for it.
Trumper says the comments that you were hiding from me. Ha ha ha, Heidi. Someone just mentioned it in chat that made me think of it. There's also one more candidate I wanted to bring up that Yang and Humanity Forward endorsed, and that's Jen Perelman in Florida. She's running against the Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and if you've heard of her before, that's because she was terrible. the former DNC chair, so she was all associated with the institutional not allowing Bernie to get a single leg up, doing everything they can to swing the primary for Hillary. Absolutely. And her husband is also famous for being like sending like nudes to underage girls, and he used to be a congressman as well, I believe. Hopefully I'm not saying something that's not true.
I didn't hear all that. I know Debbie's a terrible, terrible person. She was definitely in the bag for Hillary, and yeah, we absolutely Jen is one of those candidates that is Yang Gang aligned. So
CNN breaking news. Heidi Briones has endorsed Jen Perelman.
She had DM'd me and was asking, like, how can I get the Yang Gang to phone bank? I was like, we got you. And then I put her in touch with Distributed Forward. But yeah, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I don't know how her career wasn't ended 4 years ago, but the best time to end someone's career is 4 years ago. The next best time is today. Now. So yeah, like I said, she's Yang Gang aligned. She supports UBI. She wasn't Yang Gang, but she's an ally.
Yes, comparing Angle. Angle's the guy who lost last night to Bowman.
Oh yeah.
They definitely are. So that's like another one that I'm thinking about. That's probably what I'll switch to after Cirencione. I mean, like I'll be pushing like everybody as much as I can, but like
I mean, we can like this last month we've been pushing Herzog and Breuer. Yep. And then Booker. There's also a lot of Yang Gang that supported Booker. We can focus on multiple candidates.
We definitely can. We can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yes, we're Yang Gang.
But we can't text and stream at the same time.
God damn it, man! This is the Matt and Heidi show.
No, I'm just messing with you.
Oh no, sorry. Okay, I'll put my phone away. Anyway. What else we got?
I feel like the teacher in class, like, stop it! Put that in the phone box.
The phone box.
Yeah, I guess they didn't have those. Showing my youth. That's what they did. They do nowadays. If you're, using your phone too much in class, you got to bring it up to the front. You can collect it back at the end of the day.
Matt, I'm like twice your age. I don't even understand that. So,
Okay, this is Nell says Jen Perelman is not Yang Gang. True. However, she definitely is policies would be better for a Yang, like it would be better to have her in Congress if Yang is the president in 2024, or if anyone that hopefully would come out and support UBI as ever president. It's going to be better to have Perelman than Wasserman Schultz. And then I like what Heidi said. She said she's not Yang Gang yet. Bum bum bum.
Look at her. Like I remember she like commented on one of Andrew's status, like, Andrew, can you endorse me? And everybody was like, do you support UBI? She got the whatever it is that we do to everyone, and she supports UBI. So, that's pretty much our only requirement.
We can't afford to be picky. Because then we become exactly what we claim not to be, which is, I don't want to name names, but maybe certain elements within the progressive side. We start purity testing. Oh, we won't support you unless you're 100% on board. Have you looked at the Yang 2020 policy page? There's 160 policies. You need to read every single one on your website.
Yeah, and that's why I'm kind of like nervous about when they come out with their UBI plan, because then it's going to be like the UBI plan.
Well, that's what scares me. Is I really just in general, I truly believe that UBI is something that, in terms of uniting our very polarized and divided country, UBI is something that everybody can get around. Yeah. Everybody can feel good about, whether you're rich, poor, black, white, Democrat, Republican. So I would hate to see it just get caught up as another one of those Dems are trying to give everyone free this, free that. Now they're trying to give free incomes. It's like, no,
we don't want it to be the M for A, the Medicare for all that was purity tested, that was like literally they told Bernie to go to his home state and do it, show us it works, and that didn't freaking work. We wanted, and that's why UBI failed the first time, was because everybody's like, oh, this is not enough. So because it wasn't perfect, like the whole thing got fucking thrown out, right? Like we can't be those people if we want to get anything done, right? Like there is a perfect UBI. We can't fight for 40 years for that perfect UBI. Like I personally don't want to be fighting for anything for fucking 40 years, right? like I feel like a massive failure.
That's one thing is I feel like sometimes in politics, like a bill will be proposed and you maybe agree with the bill, but you're like, this doesn't go far enough. And then people will end up voting no, because they're like, no, we need to do something much bigger. But then just the way Congress works, of course, the issue never returns. Everyone forgets about it. I feel like when you have a victory, and a victory is getting someone who is allied with UBI into Congress, whether it's the Yang Gang version or even just kind of general support, it's a win, and you got to go for it and take it.
Yeah. Take all the wins you can get. Don't if you just become ideological. I mean, it's not enough to just be for something forever. And not saying it's an easy path or a quick path to getting UBI passed, but like they'll talk about like Bernie moved the Overton window on Medicare for all, but it took him 30 years. Andrew moved the Overton window on UBI in under 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So you can make some gains. It doesn't have to take 40 years.
Maybe I'm also biased, but now it's like when I go on a candidate's website, a Democratic candidate's website, and I don't see UBI and they're like not a corporate Democrat, I'm like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah.
Come on, get on the train. So
no, they
like that was one thing I wish he had supported UBI. It's not like, because he's got everything that progressives talk about, but not UBI. And I'm like, come on. But
yeah, like it seems like that would be a no-brainer. Like it was Lee Camp tweeted out yesterday from the Redacted show. He's like, studies have shown that this $1,200 stimulus helped alleviate poverty. And he's like, oh, so it turns out, we can alleviate poverty. We just choose not to, right?
Yeah.
It's like, look, we actually have a fucking solution and we're just choosing not to use it,
Yeah, that's one of those ones where it's just like you need to study to confirm that giving people money increases makes them less
Money
poor.
helps money problems.
Breaking money makes people less poor. It's like, yay! Now we know.
Never thought of that one, you know.
Yeah. Someone says, Patrick, can we get a Skidmore 2024 run for Congress? I am very happy to say that I am not old enough to run for
Even
Congress
in
2024, which means I don't have to make those kind of decisions. Honestly, my inclination is like, I wouldn't want to run for Congress. It feels like such a big responsibility and a big commitment, regardless of even whether I could even have a chance at winning or not, or whether I'm even like good enough to even. It feels like a weird, like pretentious thing. It's like, oh, out of the 700,000 people in my district, I'm the one that vote for me. I'm so special.
You gotta think it does take a certain like outside of people that were literally like inspired, like all the Yang gang, they're like, hell yeah, Andrew Yang, we're gonna run and keep this shit going, or even Bernie, hell yeah, Bernie, we're gonna run and keep this going. Other people that are just like, they're not driven by
yeah.
It's like I want to be president. Like
everybody's Pete Buttigieg.
I just want to be president. They're like, what is wrong with you? You know?
But people like they keep asking me or suggesting I should at some point. So I guess I'd consider it maybe like 8 years or so.
And it is something I learned recently. Like historically, it was considered conceded to actually want to be a candidate. You like your friends had to nominate you. Your friends had to be like, oh, we're gonna make it, you know, he needs to run. Like if you did it yourself, they were just like, oh wow, what an asshole. He thinks he can you know? So yeah. In 2028 we will make you run. We'll do that whole thing where we're like, Matt's gonna run.
Alrighty. Hopefully you aren't sticking to that. Did you see, speaking of Pete Buttigieg, did you see the memes, like jokes yesterday? They're like, breaking, Pete Buttigieg declares victory in the Kentucky Senate race.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I totally missed that.
It was like it was like MSDNC News or something. There's a picture of him like waving in the thing. It's hilarious.
No, I missed it.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, we've been going now for a while, like hour 20 minutes. Is there like, you think there's anything else you want to touch on before we kind of wrap things up?
No, I just want to stress that like people that are kind of concerned with the DarkHorse duo, like I understand, I get it. I'm totally someone that that doesn't want to do anything that would harm our movement, our candidate, et cetera, et cetera. I just ask people to keep an open mind and don't count Yang out before, like, if something like this does take off. Like, you know, we want him to be able to step into it if he can. But
thanks, Nell.
Glad you liked it. But just understand, I love the Yang gang, and I understand where everyone's coming from. And I would ask you to please trust that I would never do anything to hurt Andrew. And this is not my idea. This is not the Yang gang's idea. This is Bret Weinstein's idea. It's an interesting idea. And what was that? I missed it.
Nell said he was really curious and that this was about the topic, and it was really needed. So he's happy.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. Yeah, I love you, Yang gang. Let's try to be open-minded and not to fight, and let's look out for each other. And, you know,
just remember, we're all on the same team. At the end of it's like whenever there's a Yang gang internal conflict, I'm like, how did you both decide that you were going to vote for Andrew? Like, come on. Why? You guys must agree on something. Like, what? But anyways.
As someone told me on the trail, one of our senior advisors, when I was freaking out about something, because Yang gang, we did freak out about a lot of shit during the campaign. He said, he just by the shoulders, he's like, this is politics. Keep moving forward. Right. And so in my head, it's always like, this is politics. just keep moving forward, you know? So let's keep
Absolutely.
moving forward, Yang Gang. I love you guys.
Yep. We love you too, everybody. Make sure you check out Heidi. Her Twitter is going to be at Yangvets, YANGVETS, as well as her YouTube channel in the description. Make sure you like the video, and we'll be back on Friday with JD Schulten. He is running in Iowa's 4th Congressional District.
You didn't tell me you were going to have JD Schulten? Oh my God.
Just remembered because it was time to promote the next episode. But yeah, you should know him well.
I know JD and I love him. Yeah,
because he was on the trail. That's how I met him. Was on the trail.
He played.
I was at the basketball game. Yeah.
Basketball game. Yes. Yeah. JD.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, tell him I said hello.
Will do. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.